So yun, ano po tiya sa amin sa Rizal ay kablo ka sa uni?
Ha? Aslan ko kabalungan ng Rizal do. Kaya naman na.
Ano mo? Ano po tiya sa amin sa Rizal ay about dali sa higher education ng Rizal. Ano? Ay, sa uban ka ha? Oo, lisod ka ayun.
Ay, listen na si Rizal. Hindi ko kabalungan ito.
Ako madumduman sa atong mga na-topic about kang Rizal. Ikaw, Jar.
Di ba si Rizal kaya nag-spell siya sa US?
Hawa rin siya nagbabalis sa Spaniards.
Adi ay, ate ko.
US Jar.
Bugi na nagbabalis siya sa Spaniards.
Di ba sa kung ano siya nag-eskwela? Nakaskwela na siya sa USP.
Sa Harvard.
Manjun. Mag-search lang ko eh, kaya ko kabalo.
No, di sa ko kabalo. Nakalimot ng kung ano.
Hindi, dahil sa itong plano, kaya kauwi ng plano.
Ato na lang bahin nun.
Rizal. Kasi kabaluan ng bike. Ano lang ako. Ano kabaluan? Nag-college day na siya. Ano ko nagbabalis siya sa Spaniards? Ano ko mag-immerse sa Spanish?
Ano yung nag-ato siya o US?
Nalibot ng dyan ko yun sa may tinulaan eh.
Uy, sis! Ay, hi, Nas!
Ano ko tatawa ka kasi tuloy lang yung
Sabi ko, guys, ka ang mga gift yan.
Dahil, it's not in your guys.
Ay, nata o. Kung ni Rizal's education in Manila, Rizal's first travels abroad, at higher education, nilimit ka sa bukod sa Onipress ay.
Ano na siya guys, so, tabangan ka mo.
So good afternoon everyone. I'm Jarah Enojardo and I'm one of the members of the group 2. So before that, I will be introducing our group mates. So namely, Miss Dynee, Kiezle, Flor, Miss Gavia, Miss Zoue Glinogo, and Mr. Cesar Gutierrez. So for the contents, so we will be discussing about Rizal's life, higher education and life abroad, Rizal's education in Manila, year 1872 to 1882, and Rizal's first travels abroad, year 1882 to 1887, and Rizal's higher education. So for the objectives, we will know the history of education of Jose Rizal in Manila and abroad, explore the travel journey of Jose Rizal. So this is Mr. Jose Rizal.
Jose Rizal, a Filipino nationalist, poet, and author, began his education in Manila before traveling abroad to study at the University of Madrid in Spain. His education began in Manila, where he excelled in various fields including medicine, poetry, sketching, architecture, sociology, and more. In the year 1882, Rizal embarked on a journey to Europe to study at the University of Madrid, where he earned a degree in ophthalmology. During his time in Spain, Rizal's political consciousness awakened, and he became the driving force behind the propaganda movement, a Philippine nationalist and reform initiative. Rizal's education in Spain was not limited to his formal studies at the University of Madrid. He was also influenced by his travels to other European countries. For instance, he traveled to France in 1883 to observe how medicine was practiced there. This exposure to different cultures, languages, and customs shaped Rizal's worldview and informed his advocacy for reform in the Philippines.
So first, the first half of this topic is the one I will be discussing. So Rizal's education in Manila. Next. So Jose in Ateneo, year 1872 to 1877. So for the year June 10, 1872, Rizal entered in Ateneo Municipal, or formerly known as Escuela Pia, now Ateneo de Manila. So Rizal entered in Ateneo Municipal in June 10, 1872. Ateneo Municipal was established and run by the Jesus. It was during his Ateneo years that his mother was incarcerated or imprisoned for 2.5 years, allegedly for poisoning her sister-in-law. So for a brief review, Colegio de San Juan de Letran, year 1620, where Rizal took and passed the entrance examination in Christian doctrine, arithmetic, and reading. So si Don Francisco originally wanted his son to study in his institution. So Don Francisco is the Rizal's father. And then Ateneo Municipal, year 1859. So formerly known as Escuela Pia or Charity School of Manila. So Father Megan Fernando, school registrar who believed that Rizal was late for registration and he appeared frail and sickly. So Mr. Manuel Ceres Burgos, the nephew of Father Jose Burgos, who intervened in order to accept Rizal as a student in Ateneo. So next, Titay is Rizal's first landlady in Ateneo. So ang ilahang lugar is in Caraballo Street. Caraballo is in Binondo. So Jose stayed with her as payment of her debt, which is 300 pesos to Don Francisco. So Doña Pipay is the owner of the house where Rizal lived when he was in second and third year in Manila or in Ateneo. So he stayed there when he was in his second and third year in Ateneo. So the location of this is in 6 Magallanes Street, Wallet City. So there is no curfew in Doña Pipay's house. So next, Jose in Ateneo, 1872 to 1877. 1874, Rizal became interested in reading literature, and he also developed the habit of writing his experience through what would eventually become Memorias on Estudiantes. And then, so Rizal's interest, 1874, Rizal became interested in reading literature. So he started to carefully budget his time and money to buy what he needed to for his literature. Also, he developed the habit of writing his experiences through what would eventually become Memorias de Estudiante. So he was fond of the Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas, wrote Mi Primera Inspiración, my first inspiration, at the age of 13 years old, and at the age of 15 years old, he wrote In Memory of My Town or An Recuerdo Amin. So in June 16, 1875, he was out to be 14 and he would become a full intern at Ateneo for his last 2 years. So for his last 2 years, so allowance niya during his intern is 8 pesos, and Felix Rojas is a freshman who became his dormitory mate. So Jesuit system of education, ad majorem de gloriam, which means for the greater glory of God. So it is emphasized on rigid discipline, character building, and religious instructions. They encouraged competition among students, and the Romans, those students living inside the Ateneo. And then, Jose in Ateneo, he was originally denied during the registration at first by Father Megan Fernando for the following reasons. So as stated earlier, he was registered late, he appeared frail, weak, and sickly, which caused him to not pass the medical examination, and he is undersized and underage for 11 years old. So, next slide. Students were divided into two empires, which are the Roman Empire, which means interno, and then the Carthaginian Empire, which is externo. So for the interno, they are the students living inside the Ateneo. And then Carthaginian Empire or externo are the students living outside the Ateneo. And then Ateneo, okay. And then each of these empires had officials who were the top 5 most students, which are top 5 most intelligent students, and then which are the emperor, tribune, decurion, centurion, and then the standard bearer. So next, the student's seat defined his standing in the class. So the student's seat based atong 5 ka intelligent students. And then the last row was intended for the image of the donkey, which is a title given to the least performing student. And then the empires also had to compete with one another. Each student must ask 5 questions to any of his classmates with a higher rank. The classmates fails to answer 3 out of 5 questions, then the student may take his rank in the class. So mo to siya ang ilahang these are one of the roles in their classrooms. And then the empires, as stated earlier, the empires also had to compete with one another. The winning empire has their flag fully raised, while the losing empire will have its flag lowered and replace the flag with a symbol of the donkey. The next slide. Rizal became the emperor of Carthaginian Empire and none of his classmates took the rank from him. So his first professor was Father Jose Beck, and then Rizal was a favorite student of one of his teachers, Father Francisco de Paula Sanchez, his fourth-year professor. Okay, next slide. Wait, naman nasimulot to his hires. Next slide. Rizal's favorite books were the Universal History by Cesar Canto, Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas, and Travels of the Philippines by Theodore Hagward. So, Holmes, in year 1877, he finished his studies with sobresaliente excellent marks. Next slide. So, poems of Rizal during his stay in Ateneo. At the age of 13 years old is the Mi Primera Inspiración, which means my first inspiration. So this is the first poem written in Ateneo, and it is dedicated for his mother. So next is the Felicitación. Felicitación is a gift to one of his sister's wedding. So it was written by Rizal for the gift of his sister. And then at the age of 15 years old, Rizal wrote An recuerdo a mi pueblo, which means in memory of my town. So this is in honor of his birthplace, which is in Calamba. So Rizal's carvings, image of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and then image of the Sacred Heart. And then Father Jose Villaclara, Rizal's professor, who once told him not to pay attention to the arts and sciences and balance his attention to other fields such as science and philosophy. So it was stated by Father Jose Villaclara. And also other information, Rizal as painter and sculptor, Agustin Saez, which is a famous painter, and Romualdo Teodoro de Jesus, he is a noted Filipino sculptor. So image, and then Jose Villaclara once that, and then so that is the end of the first half of Ateneo in Ateneo year 1872 to 1877. So Miss Dynee de Leon will continue the discussion of Jose Rizal's university life at University of Santo Tomas year 1877 to year 82. So thank you and have a good day.
So to continue, allow me to introduce myself first. I am Dynee Marjan Pidalion, and I will be discussing the deeper look in Jose Rizal's university life at University of Santo Tomas from 1877 to 1882. So Jose Rizal's time at the University of Santo Tomas from 1877 to 1882 was a crucial but abbreviated chapter in his life. This report delves into the details of his academic pursuits, the social dynamics he encountered, and the reasons behind his eventual departure. So he had shifting gears from philosophy to medicine. Rizal's initial enrollment in philosophy and letters reflected his father's desire for him to pursue a well-rounded education. However, after a year, a turning point came. Inspired by Father Pablo Ramon, his former professor at Ateneo, Rizal switched to medicine, but this decision was likely driven by a desire to become a doctor and treat his ailing mother's failing eyesight. His academic excellence under Dominican tutelage, so he excelled in his medical courses, which likely encompassed subjects like cosmology, which is the study of the origin and nature of the universe, metaphysics, which is the branch of philosophy that examines the nature of existence, reality, and knowledge, and history of philosophy, which exploring the development of philosophical thought throughout history. So despite studying under the Dominican order, which is the rivals of Ateneo's Jesuits, Rizal remained a dedicated student. So beyond the academics, Rizal faced discrimination and fostered unity. So Rizal's UST experience was not confined to academics. He encountered a harsh reality where Filipino students were subjected to to discriminatory treatment by their Spanish counterparts. So this discrimination fueled his activism. He became a champion for Filipino students, advocating for fair treatment and equal opportunities within the university. Furthermore, Rizal was not one to stand idly by. He founded a secret society called Compañerismo. So this organization aimed to foster unity and camaraderie among Philippine students, creating a support system to navigate the challenges of academic life under a potentially biased system. So next is a decision to leave. So despite his academic achievements, Rizal's time at UST ended prematurely. Several factors likely contributed to his decision to leave, such as dissatisfaction with teaching methods and alleged Dominican prejudice. For dissatisfaction with teaching methods, some accounts suggest Rizal found the teaching methods at UST to be rigid and outdated, hindering his intellectual growth. Meanwhile, for alleged Dominican prejudice, there are suggestions that Rizal felt discriminated against by the Dominican professors due to his ethnicity or his association with Ateneo. So while the exact reasons remain a subject of some debate, it is clear that Rizal felt delusioned with his experience at University of Santo Tomas. So next is the seeds of reform or sown. So although his time at UST was cut short, it was a significant influence on the development of Rizal's ideologies. Witnessing discrimination firsthand likely strengthened his resolve to fight for social justice and equality for Filipinos. The limitations he encountered in the educational system may have fueled his desire for educational reforms in the Philippines. So next is Rizal's legacy at UST, a short stay, a lasting impact. So despite his abbreviated time at UST, Rizal left his mark. Today, the university recognizes his contribution and his pursuit of knowledge within its walls. His legacy serves as a reminder of the importance of fighting for equality and the enduring thirst for knowledge that can bloom even under challenging circumstances.
Good day, I am Kiezle Flor, and today I will discuss Rizal's first travels abroad from 1882 to 1887. So to start with, Rizal's journey to Spain. So to avoid detection by the Spanish authorities and the friars, Rizal's departure for Spain was kept secret. Even his own parents didn't know because his mother wouldn't let him. Only his older brother, uncle, sisters, Neneng and Lucia, the Valenzuela family, Pedro Paterno, Mateo Evangelista, the Ateneo Jesuit fathers, and a few close friends were present. The Jesuit priests recommended him to the members of their society in Barcelona. He went by the name Jose Mercado. Before leaving, he wrote farewell letters to his beloved parents and his sweetheart Leonor Rivera. So Rizal boarded the Spanish steamer SS Salvadora bound for Singapore on May 3, 1882. With tears in his eyes and gloom in his heart, he gazed at Manila's receding skyline. At first, he was lonely, and he was the only Filipino among the ship's 37 passengers. So, the rest of the passengers were Spaniards returning to the peninsula with their families. So Rizal grabbed a pencil and paper and sketched it as faded from the view. So throughout the voyage, he paid close attention to the people and things on board the steamer. There were 16 people on board, and he was the only Filipino among a group of Spaniards, Britons, and Indian Negros. So the ship's captain was Donato Licia, befriended Rizal. So Rizal and his fellow passengers played chess to pass the time on the long journey. He then defeated numerous times the other passengers because he was an excellent chess player. The SS Salvadora arrived in Singapore on May 9, 1882. He then stayed at the Hotel de La Paz for 2 days and went on sightseeing tour of the city. He saw the famous botanical garden, the beautiful Buddhist templates, the bustling shopping district, and the statue of Singapore's founder, Sir Thomas Stanford Raffles. After he embarked for Singapore on the mail steamer SS Salvadora, and after the 6 days of the journey, then he transferred to a foreign passenger ship which carried him to Barcelona. Rizal boarded the ship Gemna, a French steamer, and set sail for Europe. It was a bigger, cleaner ship that carried more passengers. On board, French was spoken, and Rizal attempted to converse with his fellow passengers in French. However, he discovered that his words on French could not be understood, so he spoke a mix of Spanish and Latin. He was able to improve his French by conversing with the French passengers on a daily basis. The Gemna arrived in Point Gale, a seacoast town in southern Ceylon on May 17, 1882. This town did not impress Rizal, so the next day, the ship set sail for Colombo, which was the Ceylon's capital. So Rizal arrived in the city after a few hours of sailing, and Rizal was awestruck by Colombo's scenic beauty and elegant architecture. So this is all for my part, and the next presenter will discuss the next journey of Rizal.
Good morning, everyone. I am Arnel as Gavia, and to continue with the report, Rizal arrived in the city after a few hours of sailing. From Colombo, the Gemna continued its journey across the Indian Ocean to the African coast. The following stopover was in Aden. The ship sailed from Aden to Suez, the Red Sea terminal of the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal was traversed by the Gemna in 5 days. Rizal was overjoyed because it was his first trip through the canal which Ferdinand de Lesseps had built. Rizal disembarked in Port Said and was enthralled by the multiracial residents speaking in various languages. Then, the ship left Port Said for Europe. Rizal arrived in Naples on June 11, where he was impressed by the city's business activity, lively people, and the scenic beauty. He was captivated by the Vesuvius Mouth, the castle of St. Telmo, and other historic sites in the city. The steamer arrived in Marseille, France on the night of June 12, 1882. Rizal disembarked at Marseille, saw a little of that famous port, and then went by rail to Barcelona, crossing the Pyrenees, the desolate ruggedness of which contrasted with the picturesque luxuriance of his tropical home, and remained a day at the frontier town of Port-Bau. Then, Rizal said his goodbyes to his fellow passengers. He went to the fabled Château d'If, where Dantes was imprisoned. He stayed in Marseille for 2.5 days. As for Rizal's journey in Barcelona, Spain, Rizal left Marseille and continued his journey by rail, arriving in Barcelona on June 16, 1882. In Barcelona, Rizal initially regarded the city as unsightly and filthy, but later changed his mind, discovering its libertarian and free-spirited atmosphere. He enjoyed promenading down Barcelona's famous Las Ramblas street and was welcomed by Filipinos in the city, including some of his Ateneo classmates. They threw a party for him at Café Plaza de Catalunya. Following the toast, Rizal updated them on the latest news and gossips in the Philippines. Furthermore, Rizal wrote his first written article on Spanish soil, a nationalistic essay called El Amor Patrio in Barcelona. El Amor Patrio clearly signals a qualitative shift in Rizal's nationalism. He then sent his article to Jarah Tagalog publisher Basilio Teodoro Moran. Basilio was so taken with the article that he congratulated Rizal and asked him to publish more. While living in Barcelona, Rizal received bad news about the cholera outbreak ravaging Manila and the provinces. Also, he received bad news about his beloved Leonor Rivera becoming thinner as a result of his absence. In addition, Paciano advised Rizal to continue his medical studies in Madrid, which he did in the fall of 1882. And that would be all for Rizal's first travels abroad, year 1882 to 1887.
Hi everyone, my name is Zoue Glinogo and I will be discussing Rizal's higher education. So to start, from 1872 to 1882, under the supervision of the Jesuit priests, Rizal studied in Ateneo de Manila. Rizal went to Ateneo de Municipal. Now, it is called Ateneo de Manila, but it is formerly known as Escuela Pia, in search for Rizal's formal knowledge as a high school student. So Rizal took the first entrance examination at the Colegio de San Juan de Letran on June 10, 1872. He was accompanied by his brother, Paciano, and after passing the examination, Rizal was admitted to Ateneo de Municipal. Though Rizal's father, Don Francisco, really wanted Rizal to study at Colegio de San Juan de Letran, but then decided to admit him at Ateneo de Municipal. So although Rizal was qualified for the entrance examination, Father Magin Fernando was at that time the school registrar, refused Rizal's admission because first Rizal was late, and next he said Rizal was very pale and thin and undersized for an 11 years old. But finally, he was enrolled with the help of Father Manuel Burgos. He was accepted into the institution. And Jose Rizal was not able to use Mercado as his surname when he enrolled at Ateneo de Municipal. He was registered as Jose Rizal because his real surname had rung a bell to the ears of authorities. That was because of Paciano's relationship with the leaders of the secularization movement, Father Burgos. So at this time, Paciano was using the surname Mercado. That is why Rizal cannot use the surname Mercado, so he used Rizal. Rizal lived in a boarding house where he and Paciano found in Calle Carvalho. It was a boarding house in Santa Cruz, and then Rizal enrolled the course Bachelor of Arts in Ateneo. So during this time, Ateneo was offering a 6-year program that gives students the academic title of Bachelier en Artes or Bachelor of Arts. So this program exposed students to 5 subjects such as Christian doctrine, languages of Spanish, Latin, Greek, and French, history, geography, and history of Spain and the Philippines, mathematics and sciences, and the classic Philippines. So in the boarding house, the Jesuit educational system divided the groups into 2, called Romans, or also called the boarders, and Carthaginians, or also called non-boarders. So for the Romans and the Carthaginians, there are what we call Athenian Empire. So it's like a ranking. So first off, we have the emperor, then the tribune, decurion, centurion, and standard bearer. So Rizal became the emperor of the Carthaginians, or also called non-boarders. So during this time in the Ateneo, Rizal was the brightest pupil in the whole class and was awarded with prizes. In order to improve his Spanish speaking skills, he took private lessons in Colegio de Santa Isabel during breaks with the amount of 3 pesos. So at this time, Rizal was a star pupil. Even though his mother was imprisoned, Rizal was able to bring honor to their name. So nothing happened during his 2nd year except for his regaining of lost leadership in class. Then some of his new classmates were his classmates in Binyan. He mastered 22 languages like Arabic, German, French, Latin, Russian, and etc. Beside the summer vacation of 1874, his teenage interest in reading started. He became interested in the novel Count Monte Cristo, the history book Travel in the Philippines of Dr. Fyodor Jogor. Later, he also persuaded his father to buy him Cesar Cantu's Universal History. So, like what I mentioned before, his mother was imprisoned at this time, but during those time, he always visited his mother, Theodora. So once Theodora told her son about her dream, then Rizal interpreted the dream that she would be released from jail. After 3 months, Rizal's prophecy happened when his mother was set free and happily back in Calamba. On his 3rd year in the Ateneo, he only won 1 medal in Latin, but all his grades were excellent. On his 4th year, he became a Roman, or interno, because of the help of Father Francisco de Paula Sanchez, who inspired him to study harder and to write in poetry. In the end, he won 5 medals and had excellent ratings.
He was registered as Jose Rizal because his real name, Susame, had rung a bell to the ears of the authorities. This was because Pio's relationship with one of the leaders of the secularization movement, Father Burgos. And at that time, Ateneo was offering a 6-year program that gives students the academic title of Bachelor en Artes. And this program exposed students to 5 subjects: Christian doctrine, languages of Spanish, Latin, Greek, and French, and also had history and geography. And his geography was world history and history of Spain and the Philippines, and also included mathematics and sciences and the classic of disciplines. Then Rizal's first professor was Father Jose Batch, and at first Rizal was left behind among his classmates, but he knew the severity of the studies, so he organized and seriously observed himself a timetable to manage his studies. He excelled at the Emperor in his class, a title given to the most intelligent in the class. The method of instruction used at the Ateneo was Russian Studiorum, a system of indoctrination under the tight and constant discipline, but with reform, and applies memorization and understanding of the concepts. taught in class, and at that time, the Atenean education had one of the quotes, ad Mariam de Gloria, or for the greater glory of God. A student's life was centered on the chapel, considered as the highest level of extracurricular activities, and Rizal was able to pass his oral examination on March 14, 1877. He finished with a Bachelor of Degree, Bachelor in Arts, with the highest academic honors. Looking at Rizal's scholastic records, it is evident that he excelled in his academic studies during the entire time that he was studying at Dynee. Racial pride, monastic discipline, and seclusion of boarding school life were the factors that gave Rizal the motivation to outshine his classmates. Note, doing so, he wanted to prove to his Spanish classmates that the Filipino students can compete and beat them academically. The competition inside the classroom was an opportunity to outdo his classmates in the daily activities, designed to test the students' memory and understanding of their lessons in the different curricula. For Rizal, being in a boarding school was effective as it gave him more time to focus on his studies. After his graduation in Ateneo, Rizal continued his studies at the University of Santo Tomas. He started with philosophy and letters in his course, then proceeded to take up medicine. And during his first year in UST Santo Tomas, he experienced Spanish brutality. But he won literacy competitions and had done several writings. And after 4 years in UST, he left and studied abroad.
The more specialists.
Oo, kadaghan na kinakulagan sa mga karontings. Uy,
Dagan yung pwede siya nasulat ba?
lagi nakaskwela, lagi siya sa UST.
Come on,